When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
It's January 29th. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting, where the last month was experienced over the past 7 days. How are you, Wai?
Doing all right, John. Oh, never mind. Not doing that.
I was asking Wai, not the theme, how they're doing.
Man, let's start this whole thing over.
You mean just entirely like life?
The whole month. Started over. Let's do a redo.
We can't. We'll upset too many people. This is part of the gold. But in case you're going to edit this, welcome everybody to Rewind a Raw. I am John Pollock with Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome.
No, you're not. You're exhausted, man.
No, dude, I'm doing awesome. I'm doing great.
Wasn't today a significant day? Was this a back to work day?
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, my wife went back to work, actually. Yeah, so after maternity leave. So we're very lucky in Canada to have an extended maternity leave. And she went back to work, which meant a big change here. But honestly, it wasn't so bad. We thankfully have the help of her mother. So in some ways, like I actually had a bit more free time than usual.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this whole thing might really work out. So
well, you had so much free time that you starred in a music video, your first that I am aware of. And can you please, I mean, above all else, I want to hear about this video, where people can maybe go watch it, and how you were contacted for this. What was your rate?
So over the weekend, I was involved at least in the premiere of the Hallucinations new video, Tree of Woe, starring our very own Damian Abraham. I say our very own as if, like, you know,
we've adopted him. He's part of the extended family.
Our very own, very good friend Damian Abraham, and he contacted me and asked me if I wanted to play an interviewer. You know, we've talked to Damian on the Christmas show about this project he's got going on with the Hallucination, who are this like Juno Award-winning electronic music group from Canada, and you know, he did vocals for this track of theirs, and I think they have this like this sort of wrestling theme going on for a new EP that they call Path of the Heel, and of course Tree of Woe, very much a wrestling influence. So a privilege to be a part of this. You could find it at the Hallucination, 2 words, Hallucination, at their YouTube channel. So check that out, and check out my music video debut. Look at this.
A star is Wai Ting in this video, so check that out. Wai's got it. I also retweeted it as well, so check it out. Tree of Woe. I like the song, honestly. Like, I listened to it, I'm like, this is like
a banger. Yeah,
it is.
I
don't have any other descriptive
Daniel
words.
Makabe makes a cameo in this one as well.
That's right, he does as well. So I mean, some wrestling royalty featured in here. I am
the best.
I mean, I know that my phone has been missing certain messages that have been sent, and obviously this was an invite that must have gone to my junk mail, because I was not asked for.
I assure you, if this happens again, I have been assured actually that there is a spot for John Pollock. Yes.
No, I would rather be just the casual observer for the Hallucination out there.
Maybe you'll even guest on the track. You know, maybe bring back your other alter ego.
Man, me and Damian doing a duet, would that not be? I mean, dream. If Damian wants to be a 2-time Polaris Prize winner, he knows who to hit up, right?
Well, I'll just say we've invited Damian into our little world plenty of times over the past decade. It's
never reciprocated. Never.
Time for him to return the favor, really. Yes.
Okay. He's furiously texting me probably as we speak once he listens to this on Tuesday. Okay, let's get into the show. There's quite a lot to get to. We will be getting into Raw. Want to thank everybody that has checked out the shows over the last couple of days. A lot of great stuff up on the site, if I do say so myself. We have from Saturday night, our Royal Rumble review, but a much more focused discussion on all the fallout involving the Vince McMahon lawsuit, how it was handled by the WWE over the weekend, the pulling by Slim Jim of their sponsorship, and then jumping back on board after Vince's resignation, as well as Brandon Thurston, who was at the press conference, joining us late on Saturday night to give us his thoughts about the press conference and a lot of the details as well. So that is all up there. Also want to encourage people, if they have not checked out Collision Course, really great discussion from John Cena, who was at the Royal Rumble, and Kate from Montreal, who I thought both of them had a really great chat, as they do every week, but in particular, the first 20 minutes of the show going over, the unavoidable story, which is the Vince McMahon lawsuit. So those are just a couple of the shows that are coming up, and we will tee up what is coming up later this week on the site. Are you ready, Wai?
Do it.
Well, we are going to start with the latest that is going on in regards to the Vince McMahon case. I did write a pretty lengthy story that is up on the site today if people want to look at that, not just from the perspective of some of the reaction and subject matter as it pertains to this lawsuit, but really tracing things back to a lot of the incidents over the years of things that Vince McMahon has been accused of, going back to Rita Chatterton and following up with incidents in 2006 with the Tanzabar salon, then another incident that came out in 2022 from the Wall Street Journal about another incident with a spa manager in 2011, sort of piecing all this together and the questions that are now going to be asked of what the next steps are. Yes, we have this civil case, but as we've mentioned many times, when there was a search warrant last July, the potential of an indictment that could come down if, there's many questions that still come from this, that I think this is going to be a lot of the attention. And we spoke about the pressure being felt from sponsors over the weekend. Well, today we saw at least some reaction when it came to the stock. And while it has not taken a gigantic decline, it has seen a bit of a hit over the last number of days. So today, the stock was down just over 4% after opening at $85. It's down to $82.73. Now, if you compare this over the past 5 days from that big bump they got from the Netflix and Dwayne Johnson announcement, they are down 13% since that big jump last Tuesday. And this comes after several notes. First of all, from Deadline, they wrote here that Wall Street analyst Robert Fishman of research firm MoffettNathanson issued a report on Monday initiating coverage of TKO with a rating of neutral on its shares. Vince McMahon, Fishman noted, made the WWE what it is today, leading it both in and out of the ring for decades and taking it from fringe regional attraction to global media power. He is also TKO's largest individual shareholder, and Fishman sees the lawsuit posing, quote, incremental brand and legal risks to TKO. He says his long-term intentions with his economic interest in TKO must be a consideration as a shareholder, Fishman wrote. McMahon's need to mount a legal defense could mean tapping more equity. Continued chunk sales by McMahon could put downward pressure on the TKO stock. So essentially what he is stating is what we saw when McMahon sold those 8.4 million shares, and that did affect the stock when you saw such a large volume sold by Vince McMahon. And if he does need to liquefy some of his assets here for a defense, and he's unloading more stock, that could affect things as well. The company also has acknowledged the potential liability it incurred by choosing to welcome back McMahon, who stepped down as WWE's chairman and CEO after the prior payouts to women were disclosed. His status as a TKO board member could have adverse financial and operational impacts on our business, the company warned in an SEC filing last fall. Mr. McMahon's membership on our board could expose us to negative publicity. The filing continued and may result in additional scrutiny or otherwise exacerbate the other risks described herein. Any of these outcomes could directly or indirectly have adverse financial and operational impacts on our business. And so there is the logic outlined here by MoffettNathanson about maybe the short term of Vince McMahon continuing to divest his stock. I would almost look at it from the other side of, if there is going to, like, the fact that Vince McMahon still has 11.6% roughly percentage of TKO stock. If that is a bit of an albatross around TKO, that this man still has this financial attachment to the company, that he is still profiting off of this company, and yes, he has been stripped of his title and duties, but is still its largest shareholder. Like, what problems could that pose as this continues to go forward? And you could always see a settlement with this civil case. That has to be an option. But the further things go, and if we are getting to a discovery process, this is only going to get uglier way. And this guy being attached here, like, what impact is that going to have on TKO? So the stock becomes a very interesting question about what TKO's strategy is involving still their largest shareholder.
Right, certainly. I guess beyond Vince McMahon being forced to sell all of his shares, does TKO have any responsibility in at least I don't know, answering for Vince McMahon simply with him as a shareholder? I'm not talking about answering for his past, which I think they do have to, be responsible for now that they're the owners of WWE, but strictly with him being as a large sort of a percentage shareholder. What sort of liabilities does that present TKO versus, I guess, the liability of him selling the shares being what seems like the principal concern here?
Yeah, I'd really need to rely on someone with better expertise on what they would be looking at in that sense. But like WWE, they are also defendants in this case on top of it. So you're in the case where it is not as though they don't have an attachment with this case. They are defendants in this case. And of course, with the 4 unnamed executives in this lawsuit as well, like they are part and parcel with this case on top of it. Now,
but when we're strictly talking about, like, are you suggesting maybe like a moral concern of people, investing in TKO because it might benefit Vince McMahon?
I'm not. I don't. If it began and ended there, I would not think that there would be that kind of a reflection. But
There's none. I don't think so. Look at the reaction to the stock, like on the day that all of this was announced.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, as this case continues, and I mean, have you been watching a lot of like the coverage of this? Like, it is, people are like, this is like mainstream news, and people that are like constantly covering some of the like worst stuff imaginable. They are repulsed. They are repulsed. Like, people cannot even repeat what is in this lawsuit. And it's just the idea of what effect this could have on TKO's business when they are courting different sponsorships, and like where it could affect business. Yes, a Slim Jim jumped back on, but if you are a major brand out there, like if you were in the midst of your, like, let's say this had broken 2 months ago and you're shopping the Raw rights, like, is Netflix thinking twice about jumping into bed, even with a resignation with a Vince McMahon? Like, maybe that's not going to be a deterrent to companies, but are they thinking twice when this is, even with his detachment now from the company, like, they are still going to be in the coverage of all of this. They are still defendants, and there are enough people that are looking at this as much more than just Vince McMahon solely, and looking at the company under a microscope.
Well, I can imagine certainly a Netflix or Dwayne Johnson being happy, that about the timing of all of this. But whether or not I think it'll affect TKO and WWE long term, I think remains to be seen. It depends on how much of a story this continues to be months down the line. Does it have the legs? I mean, Vince has gone through, I think, a lot of high publicity sort of coverage before, and seems to have weathered almost everything. This time, I don't think he'll come back to the company, but can TKO weather the storm? I feel like with enough time, everything blows over, unfortunately.
Michael McCann at Sportico, he is a senior sports legal expert, and he wrote an article sort of looking at like the business side, and just a few excerpts from this. McMahon flatly denies Grant's allegations. He says her lawsuit is replete with lies, obscene made-up instances that never occurred, and is a vindictive distortion of the truth. As Sportico explained, enforceability of an NDA and accompanying mandatory arbitration clause will likely surface as key defenses. In a best-case scenario for the defendants, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Mayer will dismiss Grant's complaint to arbitration, which would be conducted in private and outside of journalists' reach. So that could be one ruling. That would be the most beneficial to Vince McMahon, where this would be dismissed and would be conducted essentially behind closed doors in arbitration.
Can you repeat that one more time? Just maybe
in a best case scenario for the defendants, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Mayer will dismiss Grant's complaint to arbitration and would be conducted in private and outside of journalists' reach.
Okay. And why would they dismiss?
That would be, I mean, just for the belief that this is not enough to stand trial. That would be, his legal ruling on that. It goes on to state, but if Grant's lawsuit advances, pre-trial discovery could expose WWE leaders and former leaders to damaging revelations via testimony and publication of old emails and texts. If even some of Grant's historical retelling is accurate, it would suggest McMahon felt empowered by WWE to treat her and perhaps other women in degrading and abusive ways without worry of ever being held accountable. Like other companies, WWE has workplace policies that prohibit sexual and other forms of harassment and demand employees treat each other with respect. A typical employee who acted like the McMahon depicted by Grant would have been fired years earlier and never brought back. Stockholders could demand to know about the enforcement of WWE workplace rules for the boss and his inner circle. Michael McCann is actually going to be joining Brandon and I this Wednesday. So we're going to look at this as well, sort of from the legal aspect and maybe flesh out a couple of these scenarios and sort of what is going to be looked at. Listen, there's always in the cases of this, like it sounds very callous, but when we were talking about this case here, it is ultimately about money. Like that is what is at the end of this. This is a absolutely horrible process for a victim to go through. And so when there is a figure that could make, I wouldn't even say all of this go away, but looking at potentially like the next 2 years of your life, of these headlines, of this scrutiny, and it can go away, you can understand how that is an exit strategy for some that don't want to go through this. And I would think on the defense side, discovery is the last thing they want to undergo in this whole thing of what could be uncovered when we just saw a sample of some of the evidence that could be there.
Sure. Does it perhaps give you any sort of indication about whether or not others who may have signed NDAs may come forward, or would it not really incentivize them, or would they? I guess outlined in the lawsuit are 5 different reasons why NDAs might not be valid at this point.
Well, that's the key, is that if these NDAs can be ruled invalid, there's nothing stopping anyone else from coming forward.
I would suggest what would stop other people from coming forward would be maybe the protection of their own identities.
Well, of course, if they were willing to. And it's a great point, because, I I am not out there seeking people's commentary about Janelle Grant, but I can imagine there's some horrendous stuff being written about her. And I'm sure that if you are someone that is attached to this NDA, I mean, that's part of the reason, is that you do not want to be attached to some of this and what comes with that kind of spotlight on top of it. But if they were willing to, like, that is a part of these NDAs as well that could be unenforceable. And if someone wanted to come forward, there might not be anything preventing them either. So that is the latest today on the Vince McMahon case. It's going to continue. And I mean, there was really tonight's edition of Raw, it was basically a show that had like nothing you could infer in terms of like this shadow over the company or anything resembling that. I mean, at most you could be digging at what Cody was hinting at in terms of going into the Rumble, and there was he was referring to like some bad news or something to that degree.
He said something to the effect of, "You have no idea what your response on Saturday meant to me," like in that moment, as if to suggest that there was something very personal going on with him. I don't think he was referring anything about this. And judging by how I think the company reacted when directly pressed about this issue, there's no possible way I would expect them to even hint at anything involving this.
What Cody said here, just as I have my notes, is that all of us need an escape, and we need an escape sometimes too. The last 48 hours have been very challenging, and I needed all you people on Saturday and was grateful for you. But the way it was delivered, I too took it as probably something personal. I'm just stating that if you wanted to read into something, that would be probably the closest indication of everyone wanting an escape.
If you wanted to look into it, sure.
Okay. Way's not buying.
I mean, I don't know. I can't say one way or another.
The other key news today involves CM Punk, who has suffered a torn right triceps, and he is going to be out for a long time. It looks like surgery will be required. This is going to be the second time he has torn his triceps, but this is the different arm than the one that he tore in the Jon Moxley match at All Out a couple of years ago. This happened in the Royal Rumble. Many people were noting that after the Future Shock DDT that he was favoring the arm and apparently rolled to one of the referees to communicate. And yeah, this was sort of being speculated upon. And then today it was first reported by Dave Meltzer that he had a significant injury sustained at the Rumble. People were speculating it was the triceps. And then Mike Johnson confirmed it was the triceps. And it's, he's going to need surgery. And made it pretty clear here. This is not going to be this was not the Seth Rollins speech from last week that he was going to hint that he wouldn't make it to Mania. No, he is not going to make it to WrestleMania. And this is awful. It's just an awful injury at an awful time. And I just this guy has had just the roughest of luck when it comes to injuries over the last 2 years, when it comes to the broken foot, 2 torn triceps, and from a mental standpoint to be facing another. It took him 9 months last time to come back from the torn triceps. And, he is, he's 45 years old, and dude, rehab sucks. And he's going through it all over again. I just think it's just terrible for him, who was just on this roll since coming back to the company.
Totally. Yeah. So injuries are never a good thing in pro wrestling, but when you're a beloved babyface, I think they're at least salvageable, and I think much like Rollins last week, maybe much like Cody from 2 years ago, you can make something out of a bad situation. And I think that's what Punk did tonight. We'll cover perhaps, the promo later on, but he, to me, was able to cut an excellent promo about his comeback. And I thought it ended up successfully sort of chaptering this first run of his WWE comeback as one where he's a very solid babyface. I think he earned enough sort of clout with the office and with the audience to set himself up for a major comeback, like a WrestleMania main event level comeback. Yeah,
I mean, it'll be, if we're looking at in the ballpark of 9 months, I mean, he'll be 46 in October. So this is, at that point, it does become that question of how hard you can go with him in that top high of a role coming back.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the other maybe talking point coming out of this injury, right? I mean, I don't think it's sort of rude to suggest that this man might be injury prone. At this point, I mean, he's gone through several tough matches throughout his AEW run, escaping injury. I suppose it's probably not a great look for maybe people who might be suggesting that Punk is injury prone to have him actually be injured the first match. Granted, it was a very long match, and he had to do a whole lot. But still, is he a guy you could depend on, for a major title run? I would suggest that I don't think it matters because he's so over, and you can craft any sort of run you want out of a CM Punk as long as you can build to those major title matches, which I think the crowds are still very interested in seeing. But it does maybe, put into question his perhaps, longevity, doing this at a full-time basis.
We'll get into more of this during the Raw review, because that was the major news coming out of the show. Brock Lesnar obviously was not at the Royal Rumble on Saturday night, and we were able to learn about his original plans, what was being set up for Brock Lesnar. He was to be at the Royal Rumble on Saturday, and then he was set. It sounds like Braun Breaker was just put in his spot, complete with Dominic Mysterio eliminating Braun Breaker, as the initial plan had been for Brock Lesnar to wrestle Dominic at Elimination Chamber in Australia. And then it would seem that the roads would lead to WrestleMania with a match with Gunther. So now Brock Lesnar is out, and it becomes, is Braun Breaker, did he just assume the Brock role in the Rumble and we're going to go a different way on television? Is he going to do, he was still eliminated by Dominic. You could still do that, although there was not only no hint of that on Monday, but Braun Breaker, it sounds like, is, at least this week, they're teasing him being on SmackDown with Nick Aldis. So we will see what happens with Braun Breaker. And on top of things, with the CM Punk injury, how much of a domino effect does that create for your WrestleMania card? Because now you need to make new plans for one of your top guys in Seth Rollins, and tons of stuff could be impacted by that. And Gunther being earmarked for a Braun Breaker could have been like, we don't even know what Braun Breaker's trajectory was. Like, this was, just being thrown into the spot and continuing. But that's where things were going. And I would say it's probably way too premature to even assume where the pieces will land.
Yeah, I don't think you could just directly insert a Braun Breaker into, like plans that were scheduled for Brock Lesnar, just because, I mean, not only are they very different, athletes, but Brock Lesnar is also much more popular and established than a brand new guy in Braun Breaker. And, it's all dependent on, I think, who the opponent is and what the program is. And maybe you could possibly alter it, but I'm sure they are retooling everything to give Braun Breaker a proper introduction, first of all, to a WWE audience. Whether or not he even has a match at WrestleMania, I wonder if you would think so, but
if they're calling him up now, they need to make him not just, a Andre the Giant Battle Royal guy. I think that really, because at that point, keep him then for post-Mania plans. I think if they're bringing him up now, there's a reason for it. Other than, if not, they would have just done the cameo. I think they've made it pretty clear, like, he is getting the call up.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll see, what sort of a role he might have for a WrestleMania run. And they're definitely going to be giving him something big and important. So good for Braun. Brock's loss is Braun's gain.
Hiromu Takahashi has re-signed with New Japan, and this was announced through Tokyo Sports. So Hiromu staying put with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
So he's not coming to WWE or AEW.
He is not. No, he is not going to be the subject of any kind of bidding war. And there you have it.
Not that it would have surprised me if, like, it came out that, like, he would be one to leave, because I think he has the exact type of charisma that would translate to any market, despite whatever language, much like Shinsuke Nakamura. But good for New Japan to hold on to that one. He's important.
Yeah, for sure. SmackDown doing 2,475,000 viewers and a 0.71 in the demo, beating out the U.S. Figure Skating Championships on NBC. This was their biggest audience since September 15th, which was the show with The Rock and Pat McAfee, and highest demo audience since the Bray Wyatt Terry Funk tribute show last August. So yes, it was the night before the Royal Rumble. Do you attribute a sizable amount of this to just the publicity from the past couple days?
100% yes, for me at least. I mean, I watched the SmackDown. I think the lineup going in was not like, were people really that interested to see people draw balls out of the fucking roller? I don't think so. I think it's all the talk of WWE and Vince McMahon that would have led to this number. But
do you think the thought process was just, if they're going to address it? Because when the first scandal, like the first Wall Street Journal story broke, and they built it, like, remember that Vince announced he was going to appear on SmackDown, and they drew a number out of it. I mean, there was less than zero chance of Vince McMahon showing up on this SmackDown or of the company talking about it. But
Right.
the resignation happened as the show was going on as well. So, I mean, I do attribute most of it to just the Vince McMahon news. Although I'll just say personally, like I had no interest in watching SmackDown on Friday night. And I don't even know really the psychology of that curiosity when like there was no way this was going to be addressed on TV.
Right. What time did the resignation news drop?
Dude, it was like in the first hour of SmackDown. I want to say like between 8 and 8:30 was when the news officially dropped with the Nick Khan email.
And I guess I'm gonna look back to Brandon's quarter hours to see if there's any sort of notable shift. I mean, it was pretty high throughout the entire 2 hours.
Yeah, it's not like there was some big jump just because of that. But I don't doubt that the Vince McMahon news did draw people to this show for whatever reason, whatever you were looking for. But yeah, they did a giant number on Friday. Rampage actually held up, did a pretty good number itself, 382,000 viewers and a 0.13 in the demo, up slightly. But where they really got a jump was in male viewership in both 18 to 49 and 18 to 34. Although women in the 18 to 34 demo took a bit of a decline. The peak was the first quarter for Jon Moxley and Lee Moriarty. Are you expecting like Collision to just tank number wise on Saturday?
Yeah. But what is tank? Like, what is tank for Collision, honestly? Like, and does it, we kind of know what to expect, right? And how much weight do we put on?
Oh, yeah.
On it?
I'm only curious to, like, it was, I only got to watch it like late last night. It was a hell of a show. I thought Collision was great on Saturday. And I will say, if you were someone that for whatever reason skipped the Rumble to watch Collision, they gave you a great show that they needed to on a show like that. That cage match I thought was great. Danielson and Nagata was strong. You had Eddie Kingston and Willie Mack on the show. Like, I just thought overall it was a really entertaining 2-hour show. I enjoyed this show more than I did the Royal Rumble.
I think that sort of buzz is like maybe the best thing you can hope for, you know, when you're going up against something like the Royal Rumble. I mean, its success may not be measured in ratings, but I think word of mouth and sort of like the reputation that, hey, this is worth watching, even in DVR, or it's worth watching certainly on nights where it's unopposed. You know, they can't afford to just take it easy on nights like this.
Bossier City, A-Town for AEW. Tuesday night, NXT will have a face-to-face with Ilya Dragunov and Trick Williams. The Dusty Classic semifinal with Trick and Carmelo Hayes against Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. Noam Dar against Von Wagner for the Heritage Cup. And Elektra Lopez against Lola Vice, as I think Elektra Lopez probably finishing up on NXT now that she's made the jump to SmackDown. Dynamite will be in New Orleans on Wednesday. And we have the return of Chris Jericho taking on Kyle Fletcher. Deonna Purrazzo against Taya Valkyrie, and then the Dealer's Choice matches. We'll see Hangman Page against Toa Leona and Swerve Strickland against the heavily teased Rob Van Dam, without stating it flat out.
Right. I like this role for Rob Van Dam. You know, like if he was a full-time roster member, I don't think he'd be appreciated. I don't know if I would appreciate it. But to have him, like,
if you could pick my opponent and you really had a beef with me, okay? You once I broke into your house once and like left a t-shirt by your child's crib. Would you be going to the Rolodex and picking, you know who? Rob Van Dam. That's who's gonna shut up Pollock. Of all the people at my disposal, everyone in this company, everyone I know in wrestling, Rob Van Dam.
I guess you know, Hangman was trying to think outside of the box, you know, throw you for a loop.
Okay, well, Rob Van Dam and Swerve Strickland. And last thing, WrestleTix did note the Royal Rumble number that they were able to decipher was 46,082, which would have been roughly 2,000 off of the announced figure on WWE programming. So very
much more accurate than in the past.
Much closer. Not to the degree the Survivor Series was in November, but pretty damn close. And again, this is the WrestleTix number. Like I could see this being like pretty like on like spot on with the announcement.
Now, are they trying to include everybody that's in attendance and not just, you know, the people that purchase tickets to get to 48,000?
Well, the WrestleTix number typically does not include like the suites and stuff like that. So it would suggest to us that like WWE is getting more honest with their numbers that they're putting on television, which 100% is a shift from Vince. Where
And then
these were for
WrestleMania
entertainment purposes only.
WrestleMania will also be very telling, and as well as Perth as well.
Okay, coming up this week on the site, we have got on Tuesday. It's happening, folks. It's a likely for 2024. The MMA prediction show is coming at you. Ariel Helwani, John Pollock. We are going to go through all of the predictions made 1 year ago and then make a whole new list for 2024.
I would say maybe the biggest news of today, perhaps, at least, John. What I thought there wasn't enough time to get one in this year. What's going on? Everybody's been asking.
I had to make time. Okay, if you don't have time, you make time. And Ariel and I, the tradition will continue. Year number like 11 or something of doing this.
This was one of the most demanded, one of the most asked questions over the past month here. Where is the prediction show? Where's the prediction show? So it tells you a lot of people love this show. Okay. 11 years in now?
I got requests at when I was at the UFC from like media. It's like, where's the prediction show? Listen, I'm one man. Okay. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. John Pollock delivers. Okay. So that's coming out on Tuesday. Look out for that. Brandon Davey will have you covered Tuesday night after NXT. Wednesday, as I mentioned, Brandon and I will be continuing to focus on the Vince McMahon story. Michael McCann from Sportico will be joining us, and probably at least one other guest as well. So stay tuned for that. That'll be live 3 Eastern on Wednesday. Thursday, Wai and I are traveling back to Toronto for Raw is War from September 3rd of 2001 at the Air Canada Centre, as it was named in 2001. All I know is that Kurt Angle and Steve Austin end up on a bridge, and I know that because I had to find an image for the schedule. I don't know what else is on this show, and I was at this card 20 some odd years ago.
I'll tell you who was getting a lot of cheers on this particular show. It probably was Rob Van Dam. He was
super hot. I know the next night they do Austin and Van Dam in Toronto. They did back-to-back nights, and this is night 1.
Yeah, I remember this period very well. I mean, this was I didn't go to this show. I went to the SmackDown afterwards, but it's very much, a very similar sort of era. This was really at the height of the invasion, was it not?
This is when they announced WrestleMania. Like they did the announcement during the day to announce that they're coming back for Mania in March.
Yeah. You know how much I love the invasion, John. Before there was a Forbidden Door, there was a WCW WWE invasion, and I look forward to talking about the Alliance. God knows what else is on this show.
Yes, the era of Mighty Molly, and yeah, we'll dive into it. We'll figure out September 3rd, 2001 of a well-remembered date in wrestling history. So that's coming out Thursday for members at postwrestlingcafe.com. We'll have a new Post Pro Res with WH Park and Karen Peterson coming out on Friday. The season finale of Echo with WH Park and Rich Fan.
Double dose of WH.
You can never get enough WH.
Quadruple H.
And then Collision Course Saturday, and then Davey and Braden wrap up the week with a review of NXT Vengeance Day from Clarksville, Tennessee on Sunday night.
Yeah, maybe just a note on the scheduling. So last week we were supposed to put out a Long and Winding Road with me on WH's show. For obvious reasons, I think it made sense to delay that to a future date. So those of you eagerly waiting for that, you can
a bit longer, a bit more winding on the road to Kawada Misawa from 1995. So look out for that in the coming weeks from Wai and WH Park. But now we shift focus to Tampa, Florida for tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. 12,459 tickets out per WrestleTix. And out comes Pat McAfee, who is now the permanent member of the Raw broadcast team with Michael Cole. So we got rid of Kevin Patrick. So we were down to one play-by-play man. We were good on analysts. So Pat McAfee is back. They have an abundance of analysts between Graves, Barrett, and now Pat McAfee, who I cannot fathom that this guy is going to be traveling every Monday to do Raw on top of his normal gig.
So from what I gather, College Game Day is over, right?
Yes.
Which would free him up and maybe avoid the initial reason why he departed SmackDown.
But he's doing a daily talk show 5 days a
Well,
week.
he's also probably crazy, and probably getting paid a handsome, amount to do something like this. But you can tell he clearly loves it. Maybe you couldn't tell from
He's
watching
being paid
SmackDown.
more than a handsome amount from ESPN. So
Wow.
he does not need to be doing this by any stretch of the imagination. I just question, number one, my first thought when I saw Pat McAfee here and knowing the news was like, man, I'm sure the guy probably doesn't want to be traveling while he's got this injury, but you put Punk on commentary for like 6 months. Could you that would seriously be, I think, appealing to a lot of people to have Punk on commentary for 6 months. Number two is that I would say if you could have gotten Pat McAfee, it would have made all the sense in the world while you're like courting your next television contract that you have someone of Pat McAfee's celebrity attached to your show. But they've passed the finish line at this point. So, I mean, I would love to know what Pat McAfee is like. I'm sure he enjoys doing this, but man, he is very behind on this product, I will say. Bit better than the Rumble tonight, but I mean, that will come with the week. He can't avoid watching Raw because he will be calling Raw, but it's still very evident that he is getting familiar with all the current storylines and what's what.
I definitely felt like tonight, even he was still a bit more Art Donovan than he was, the Pat McAfee of old. And again, that'll come.
Ran
with
to the
time.
washroom at one point. They noted on the broadcast. Did you hear him say that? It's like it's a long show.
I know he brings like a ton of value to the show that in ways that I probably don't necessarily understand. Not really being a consumer of his podcast or anything else like that. So I get it. I do wish that I do hope that they have a good role for Wade Barrett, who I think has been excellent, in this spot. Like, he's not the type of commentator that I think maybe takes so much attention away from the product. That I think he just ultimately enhances it, and he does a very good job of keeping up with the storylines. Obviously, he's up with NXT, so I wonder what his next move is, and I wonder what SmackDown's going to look like, without a lead play-by-play guy.
Well, I wouldn't be the first one to make this joke, and I say it like half jokingly, is that, man, for those weeks that Corey Graves was with Kevin Patrick, and Graves had to pretty much play the role of both, that you could easily put Graves in a play-by-play position because he kind of had to be that quarterback with Kevin Patrick. I just cannot.
Sorry, it's Cole. It's Cole on SmackDown, I guess, doing double duty, right?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
But the question would be like, I'm just joking about like if you put Graves with Barrett.
Yeah.
I don't know. They have an abundance of analysts and like pretty much Michael Cole and Vic Joseph as your play-by-play people. And I don't know why Cole would be doing both shows for the extended period here.
Punk on play-by-play. Who cares? Throw him out there.
Punk and Graves.
Punk. Yeah, they're friends, aren't they? Yeah. So anyway. I'm sure Punk would do a great job doing that as well.
CM Punk comes out, arm is in a sling, and he looks at that WrestleMania sign and he felt he had it. It was in the palm of his hand. He's not mad that he lost on Saturday and congratulates Cody Rhodes, says he's earned this, hopes he wins at WrestleMania. He doesn't believe in luck, but I do feel a bit unlucky. He tore his triceps, thought maybe he could tape it up and work through it, but that's not in the cards. Maybe headlining WrestleMania won't ever happen. But then he mentions his friend Chad Gilbert, who has cancer, and he spends time with him, and he's always in a good mood, and that's a real fight. This is a flesh wound. And he says...
Chad Gilbert, guitarist of Newfound Glory.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not recognize the name, but I know Newfound Glory.
That's a note from Jordan Goodman. He'll want credit for that one.
Wow, that's very... I thought that would just be off the top of your head, Way.
No, it's not.
Says he loses more often than he wins. Did you see me fight in the UFC? I had a dream and I was given an opportunity and I said yes because it scared the crap out of me. Just like coming back here after 10 years scared me. Back to a place I never wanted to leave, but I had to. WrestleMania scares me and it might haunt me for the rest of my life. But being the best in the world, that's for people who fight cancer, put their lives on the line. I promise to keep doing this until the wheels fall off because you people seem to like me. I've overcome adversity, but I don't focus on the negative, and those who told me no. WrestleMania 40 isn't in the cards, but I'm a Cubs fan, so it's not the first time I've said there's always next year. This is when Drew McIntyre interrupted this interview, this promo, whatever you want to call it. It was amazing. Like, it was so like this guy, when he is in his zone, I think there are few at this level. And this is in a company now where you have many great talkers. And he was, I mean, it was just, it was real. It was a real emotion that you had from him. How often do you ever hear him refer to the UFC and his tenure there? Like, that is, it's been a heel line a few times in AEW, but himself, I mean, that has been something like he just never touches on. And just like a really great like explanation. Like, here
he used it to babyface himself. You know, he used his terrible UFC run that people have made fun of him for to babyface himself, which is amazing. I think, again, this is Punk and the WWE making the best out of a bad situation, but it required an excellent promo from CM Punk in order to accomplish it. And this was an excellent babyface promo. We have been critical of, I think, CM Punk in the first several appearances he's had in this WWE comeback. This is Punk back at his best, you know, and unfortunately he's just leaving right now, but he's shown that he still very much has, you know, that top level, top shelf promo within him. And it was a great babyface promo for all the criticisms I might have had about maybe authenticity to his voice. This was as purely babyface as you could get. This was like a very good runner-up speech for maybe somebody who's lost like a primary election, giving his endorsement to Cody, you know, very classy, respectable sort of dismount from the race. He, you know, threw in a little bit of flattery of the Tampa Bay Lightning in there as well, just to kind of maybe sweeten this crowd up a little bit more, a little bit of self-deprecation about his UFC run. And then, of course, a very touching personal story about his personal friend who's, you know, who is fighting a very, very real heroic battle right now. I thought it was just a textbook sort of excellent promo from a babyface CM Punk that sets him up for a huge comeback. Like, this to me feels, at this point at least, a lot can happen between now and next year. But if Cody's going to finish his story this year, this is the story for the year after WrestleMania 41. CM Punk finally getting his main event.
Well, I mean, there's always the comeback, but man, it's I can't believe, like, to be in this position where, I mean, look at the like we were gushing last week over this segment with Cody Rhodes. It's like you had just set the table for all this stuff. It was, you know, it's like time is not on his side for like career wise, and you just have to be so frustrated that you could be looking at potentially another, like, best case scenario, like it's probably 6 months. So anyway, Drew McIntyre interrupts, says, I do think you're poison, but, you know, Punk, I can relate to you. You know, it was a while back. I lost my job and I had to reassess my career and face adversity. And I'm really not that spiritual of a person, but I prayed for this and it happened. I came into the Royal Rumble. I targeted you, Punk, and I violently assaulted you. And when you eliminated me, I couldn't sleep that night after the Royal Rumble. But then when I heard the next day about your injury, I had exorcised the demon, CM Punk, and I slept wonderfully last night. Now I'll find a way to WrestleMania and I'll live your dream again. Dude, Drew McIntyre was amazing on this entire show. He's been amazing pretty much every week, but to me, he has reached another level. Like, if there is someone that it's unfortunate about this injury, that is so obvious the guy to step into this role as the lead heel on this brand to go into WrestleMania, this man has talked his way into this spot, and he was tremendous here.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of like rumors out there about the state of his contract, whether or not he's currently signed one, whether or not he'll stick around after WrestleMania. But man, like, this felt like, you know, this entire Drew McIntyre heel run has felt like maybe an extended sort of negotiation tactic and a campaign for him to get the biggest check he possibly could, because the man has been just on fire, you know, for several months now, and he's heading towards WrestleMania and finds himself in a position where he's probably more valuable than he's ever been. And yeah, like you said, you know, If Punk can't have that Rollins match, I think Drew is a perfect replacement. We will talk about other options that they might be presenting in that spot as well. Punk's injury certainly hurts a lot, but it doesn't cripple WrestleMania. Not at a time when this roster is as deep and as impressive as it's been in years. And Drew McIntyre is one of those standout guys. So, yeah,
they've got a lot going for them. But this hurts. I think this does hurt.
Hurts, definitely. Yes.
Like that's a big name to lose for Mania season for this year in particular. Punk just explains, my heart hurts more than my triceps. I'll headline WrestleMania next year, but when I come back, you're first on my checklist. I'm coming for you. And they get into a brawl, and Drew stomps his arm when Sami Zayn runs down to attack Drew and clear the ring and then help CM Punk to his feet. And that was the end of CM Punk for the foreseeable future.
It sets up your return program for him. I mean, maybe by some indication, this might have been something they were going to for either Elimination Chamber or something, who knows? But now it's going to be delayed, unfortunately, but hopefully it'll feel big or bigger by the time it happens.
I thought it was a tremendous segment for what they had and what they got out of it, and something for Drew as well coming out of it, where I think you do have like people were just so like engrossed with CM Punk's speech, and then he comes out and it was like one of those heel interruptions that I think really did benefit the heel in this scenario.
Does it give you any indication about what you might sort of I don't know. Does it give you any maybe more hope that, or at least does it suggest that Drew McIntyre has re-signed? Basically, is what I'm trying to say. The fact that they're already building to the CM Punk match.
Okay, if he's not, we are not moving forward one more. Like, I wouldn't be doing this angle until I have this guy on paper. I mean, we've seen some crazy stuff when it comes. Like, I mean, it's not the equivalent, but like. And it's a totally different company with New Japan. But what they did with Jonah, with Bronson Reed through the G1, and then building him up, he's the guy to beat Okada in the G1, and then find out he's not under contract, and WWE just scoops him up. I was like, how did you not have this set up when you were booking and executing all of this? I would say at this point, I mean, they have not gone so far with Drew that this would be, for him, I would, he's in a tremendous position to command a great amount to stick around, and his value just shot up. It's a sad part of any industry, but his value jumped that much more over the past 48 hours.
Maybe we'll get that Bronson Reed Okada payoff.
Well,
somewhere else.
Judgment Day is in the back, and Ripley says that it's Bayley's funeral if she chooses me at WrestleMania, and Priest and Baszler are ready to show how vicious they are. The distractions are gone. They're all on the same page. We had the regular walk and talk with DIY, who have waited 7 years for this television title match against the tag team champions. We have waited for this since watching wrestling on Saturday mornings as kids. One segment match. It's commercial. We didn't even mention it's commercial free for the first hour as well.
Yeah. Commercial free for the first hour, but a ton of commercials in the second and third hours.
Not complaining. Priest and Baszler against DIY for the tag titles. Gargano gets the tag after the advantage on Ciampa. Priest stops a fairy tale ending, and then they double team Ciampa when he's back in. One final beat is hit, and then Ciampa with the air raid crash off the turnbuckle for a near fall. Crowd reacts to that. They hit the meet in the middle onto Baszler. Fans are getting into it, chanting DIY, but then it's Priest yanking the leg of Baszler right there in front of the referee. And this is just breaking up the cover. Not a DQ.
Is it usually a DQ? Has it been a DQ in recent memory? Am I forgetting something?
I guess you can just pull him out from the floor. No problem. Priest is then sent flying over the desk. Baszler misses with the coup de grace. So Gargano Gargano escape while Ciampa applies the Sicilian stretch at the same time, but Priest lifts up Ciampa, drops him on Gargano, breaking up the submission. Priest then catches Gargano, elevated flatliner onto the desk, and then they have Ciampa alone with a razor's edge coup de grace to retain the belts in 12 minutes and 54 seconds. First match back officially for Pat McAfee as a regular member of the Raw broadcast, and he gives this a 6-star rating. 6-star match.
I'd love to know what the comparison points are.
This guy, he was watching Okada on his iPhone.
I guess, do we know how big the scale is? It could be a 10-star scale. We don't know that.
You're right. He has not introduced the McAfee star scale, but
Yeah.
6
He
stars
also-
for Baszler and Priest against DIY.
He also seemed to learn for the first time what DIY stood for in this match, as he asked Michael Cole. And I guess he never called any of their like DIY matches in NXT. Whatever. Like, it's kind of his thing to like kind of be aloof, you know, and you're going to get a bit more of that on this first night back.
Listen, I was a big fan of Pat McAfee, broadcaster, but Pat McAfee getting like back into the swing of things, I'm not as into.
It takes time, but he'll get there. We'll give him a few weeks. I thought DIY looked great here. As a first title challenge, I thought Tampa treated them really well, and overall, I felt like it was the type of match where they gained something even in defeat, but so much of that sort of like, you know, feeling comes from the follow up, and they have to continue to treat DIY as an important act if they want to have them stick around and not just be seen as mid-carders, which I think they could be in danger of. So it was a good match. Yeah,
I like the match. I thought this there was some very good wrestling on this show. I co-sign with you with DIY. It's, you know, a good match, but what they do with them beyond that, I think they're sort of just have carved out their spot as, you know, they can have a great match in the middle of the card. You can call on them for that. Is there much more to it with them? We'll see. Dom and JD join Priest and Baszler in the ring, and they state that there's one member of the Judgment Day that deserves an apology. They call out R-Truth, and Truth comes out, and if you watch it, when they do the Druid holograms, they have now added an R-Truth stand-in with the holograms that I thought was hilarious. And Truth says that, you know, we've always been family. Priest is like his older brother. Finn is the weird uncle. JD is the stepbrother they don't want to admit is in the family. Priest says, but you're not in the Judgment Day. And I like you. You're funny. But because of that, I'm not the one who's going to do this. And JD jumps R-Truth from behind, attacks him, beats him down. Then the Miz comes down. They beat him down too. And Awesome Truth is left laying as the Judgment Day stands tall.
So I guess my question coming out of this is, was this the turn? Was this the big turn? You know, because I think we were all, or at least you and I were thinking that the turn would come with perhaps Priest showing some sort of babyface, I don't know, inkling towards saving Truth. This comes across to me like a bit more of like a middle chapter, you know, rather than like Sami Zayn finally turning on Roman Reigns at the Rumble, for instance. This feels like it's only maybe an obstacle for R-Truth, and he'll still think that he's a part of the Judgment Day. Because I just sense like a bigger sort of moment for them to finally extinguish this. But we'll see. But obviously it builds to Truth and Miz being your next challengers, or at least next big challengers for the Judgment Day's tag titles. When do you think that match happened?
I mean, that could be at Elimination Chamber, potentially.
Is it big enough for Mania?
I mean, I wouldn't discount it. Like, R-Truth is really hot, and I could see them going
Who else is there
further with them. Oh, you're right. I mean, there's not a big program for Judgment Day on the horizon. But yeah, that's a long way. I don't feel it with Truth and Miz. Like, I feel that there is just a non-chemistry there, even though the whole point of this is that they have this history together.
I think because of the history, like I accept them as a team. It kind of leaves Miz in like a bit of a, I don't know, kind of like I don't know if him playing the straight man next to R-Truth is like the like him at his best, you know. But Truth is hot, and to get him into like a big program, a tag team match with an established tag partner in the Miz, I think makes a lot of sense, even if it is for a stage.
Maybe they'll do a music video together.
That would probably garner them some extra fans.
R-Truth of Woe.
Yeah.
Baszler and Stark against Niven and Chelsea Green. Green got tagged in, and she threw Baszler off to avoid the Kirifuda, and then just sidesteps, missing a missile drop kick. So, and then Zoey Stark killed her with a Z360, 2 minutes, 5 seconds as they beat the former champions. And then we took our first commercial break 53 minutes into the first hour. Kicking things off for hour 2 is Cody Rhodes, and has Samantha Irvin do double duty here, announcing him as the winner of the 2023 and 24 Royal Rumble. Cody says, we all need an escape, and this is where he talks about the fans getting him through on Saturday, and is about to make the WrestleMania main event official when Seth Rollins interrupts, shakes Cody's hand. I mean, on this show of all shows where we do the guy is hurt legit and we're going to do the big injury angle, I couldn't help but watch this and just immediately go back to this guy's torn pec and Rollins destroying him on Raw the Monday after.
Well, they put a lot past them. They've been through a lot. Rollins is a different person now.
Yeah, they've done the house show loop together, so it's water under the bridge. He tells Cody, if you choose Reigns, you're making a mistake. You should fight me instead. And I give Cody a lot of credit. He had to have like the same confused look on his face for about 10 minutes here as Seth Rollins put out his case. And they kept cutting to Cody, who had to look like, I've never thought of this as an option ever. This is so bizarre that you're telling me this. And the man just had to have this look for the whole promo. And the crowd is chanting, no, no, no. I mean, just a ringing endorsement of this secondary championship. Cody said, you said that you were the guy, but you're not the guy. And neither is Roman Reigns anymore. I'm the guy. And this title is the title in WWE. The landscape has changed. And I know you've been thinking of Roman Reigns nonstop for the past year, but you're on the road with me. We've seen all these towns and who's headlining all these shows. It's not Roman Reigns. It's me. People were sick of Roman Reigns. That's why this title was created. This title is for us, by us. And now we have a new name for this championship, the FUBU World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins. And we don't have to pretend that Roman Reigns is God anymore. We don't need Roman Reigns at all. That's the Hollywood title, the Hogan title for posers. Now, was this just him like going from Hollywood to Hogan? Because this felt like a very unnecessary dig just at Hulk Hogan out of nowhere by Seth Rollins, the self-professed Hulkamaniac here.
Has he professed himself to be a Hulkamaniac?
Oh, he was last week. They were doing the anniversary thing and they did something with Rollins. He was on the Daniel Cormier interview. He was there like promoting the Hulkamania thing. So right? I don't think this was him deliberately jabbing Hogan. I mean, there's plenty of wrestlers that I think would more than volunteer to take a shot at Hogan, but I don't know if Seth is one of them. He says this, and this is the title you don't have to politic for. And he says, do you want the poser title or do you want the Dusty Rhodes title, the workhorse title, the blue collar championship, which was nice that he was actually decked out here to back that.
Yes.
And says, but I know this isn't about Dusty. It's about you. And all I ask is that you think about it. What kind of a man do you want to be? Do you want to be a poser or do you want to follow in your father's footsteps? No pressure. Cody says, I have a lot of respect for you, Seth. And I didn't imagine we'd be talking about this. And I'll think about it. And that's how the segment ended. So, man, a lot on Cody's mind here.
I think this presented a really interesting scenario. And they have pushed Cody versus Roman now for like a year and a half. Like we've been involved in this storyline. And Cody has specifically avoided challenging for Rollins' title this entire year because we all know that the story ends with Cody beating Roman Reigns specifically for that championship. The championship he says his father never got. And they went as far as to have Cody point directly at Roman Reigns at the end of the Royal Rumble last night. But Punk's injury changes everything. And they did not know about CM Punk's injury when they had Cody point to Roman Reigns at the end of the Royal Rumble. So whether or not this was just a misdirection to, serve up this sort of a decision story from Cody, it's suddenly a lot more of a realistic possibility than it was, 48 hours ago. Because if you're the WWE, you have several cards on the table, several major cards on the table. Even if CM Punk is not there, you still have The Rock. You have The Rock versus Roman Reigns. You have Cody versus Roman Reigns as well. But if you have The Rock and Roman Reigns, you have Seth Rollins who needs an opponent, you have a Cody Rhodes. What's the best way to maximize your value with all of those pieces? I think everybody watching this, like you heard it, doesn't want the possibility of Cody not having that Roman Reigns match. But if the creative is strong enough, and it's going to take some really strong creative, they might actually attempt to try to convince the audience that Seth versus Cody might be a better way to go. And again, it's going to require a lot of heavy lifting from both guys. And I thought Rollins did a great job tonight. Like, if there was this is a monumental task to ask a babyface to try to convince them that the year and a half long program that they've been building to and that we're approaching the finish line for is to suggest that they're going to change it. And I thought Rollins did a great job. But again, Punk's injury changes everything. So I'm just saying it's possible.
I don't throw out any ideas because everything's been thrown up in the air with this Punk injury. There's it totally makes sense. If you have the commitment of The Rock, you could make the argument you should be doing that regardless. That's there. But if for some reason The Rock is not there and you've got to play with the pieces you have here, you've also introduced the idea of doing Cody going for both, where it's faces Seth night one, winner gets Reigns the next night. You have a viable Cody Reigns rematch, or you tease Reigns and Rollins the second night, and you can even promote it as winner take all with the championships.
Interesting. Okay.
If you have Rock out of the equation and you've got to play with the players that you have at your disposal.
Now, if The Rock is not available, should you not just go for Roman versus Cody and have Drew versus Rollins or Gunther versus Rollins, just to kind of create a few more top spots for several guys rather than having 3 people only take up those spots?
I guess you look at it of what they think is the biggest match for that first night. The trouble is Seth and Drew is there's a story there, absolutely, but they've
done the match.
It's sort of we've done it on TV by this point as well. We just did it a month ago. And again, there's the whole question mark with Drew as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of calculus that I would say that goes into this. But I mean, yes, if you have the Rock option, that is certainly, as we had said, an embarrassment of riches. And now you might be one guy down, and you can shift shift your plans, and this is going to be a very big set of shows for the company regardless. But it was a very strong segment here. I thought Seth was great, and it looks like they are going to draw this out further with where they're going. And can we even say they have a definitive plan locked at this point?
So much of it I think depends on The Rock, doesn't it? Right.
I'm saying, everything that went down last week, I mean, that could very much affect things with Dwayne Johnson. I mean, He is the guy. Let's remember, he has to be out there promoting the UFL, and you're already on this board of directors and you're pushing Mania. It's he will be in a lot of he's going to be out in the public eye, and by default, he is going to become the spokesman for this company, that this lawsuit is going to be major news. At least it is now.
It's so interesting how so much connects together. Obviously everything connects together, but the idea that we're past the Rumble and the main event for WrestleMania could still be several different options because of a numerous amount of factors, including injuries to CM Punk and everything going on with Vince McMahon. It just makes this run up to Mania maybe that much more interesting.
We go to the New Day, and Kofi cuts a promo about people associating them with their pancakes and bootios, but we're also about winning titles, and he's going to win his 5th IC title tonight. But before that, Jey Uso, Bronson Reed. 1 week in the making. Reed is attacking him, big senton, and then after missing the Uso splash, Reed hits him with a Death Valley driver, and then Jey rolls away from the tsunami, super kick, spear, and the Uso splash to win in 9 minutes and 17 seconds. And just kind of keeping Jey around. Like he's just like floating.
This was Jay's first Raw singles match since December the 18th against Ludwig Kaiser. His first Raw match period since January the 1st. So he's been pretty much inactive for an entire month. And I can't really explain the reason why. I mean, maybe they wanted to just kind of set up a big surprise meeting between him and his brother at Rumble, but doesn't mean you can't have him involved, at least like talking about how much he wants to win the Rumble. I really feel like he's kind of cooled off over the past month, and no clear direction of what. Well, I guess they tease the Jimmy thing, but no follow up even.
If the goal of the Rumble was to make you want to see that match, I don't think they did a great job of that at all in the Rumble. Like they were 1 and 2, but you weren't left with that Rumble of, man, I can't wait for them to get to. There was no big angle shot between them. It
kind
was
of
just
cooled
the
it off
novelty of seeing him in the ring. Yeah, it was like you gave Breaker the elimination of who did he eliminate? Jimmy or Jay? He eliminated one of them. Anyway,
I don't remember at this point.
It was Jimmy, I think. So yeah, that was
he's gonna need story. He's gonna need promo. It's not enough to just have like, hey, like you're my twin brother. You know, like when the story was hot, when everybody was still thinking about the bloodline. Yeah, but I think now it deserves a bit more sort of personal, and they can get there. Like we're still far away from Mania. I also want to say missed opportunity here, not calling this match meat versus eat.
Oh man, they're just wrecking Jay at every opportunity, aren't they? Just cutting him off at the legs. They did do a very good job of like isolating video packages for Andrade, Jade Cargill, and Braun Breaker to emphasize their appearances in the Rumble. Andrade has signed with Raw. Nick Aldis walks in and just got scooped from from underneath him. And Aldis tells Pierce, we've got to talk about the Elimination Chamber, but before he can, he gets a call from Braun Breaker. So that's our tease of Breaker probably showing up on SmackDown.
So it seems to take Andrade out from the LWO Legado angle.
Yeah.
Well, which is fine. Like, you know, there's plenty for him to be involved with, I suppose. Who's he gonna mix up with, you think, on Raw? Probably like a Jey Uso level.
Uso is going to be my guess. When in doubt, go with Jey Uso.
I guess so. Yeah. But also doing a good job of like making Braun feel like you know, the hot free agent.
Gunther did a promo. He says, Kofi, you're about to have the biggest fight of your life. And he says that Gunther, after tonight, I'll just forget about you and I'll leave you in the ring as I continue as the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion ever. Jackie interviewed a very distraught Becky Lynch as she let a lot of people down by losing the Rumble, let herself down, but she's not going to give up. She's going to have to think smarter, fight dirtier, and take the title back to the main event. So she's got to regroup. Great news, Becky. There's a show called The Elimination Chamber, and there's a second title. So you know what? There is a plan B for you.
Yes, there is.
Gunther and Kofi Kingston. I thought this match was great. Gunther attacks him right away and puts the Boston Crab on. We go to break, and Gunther is in control. Kingston then catches him coming off the top, or comes off the top, and is caught with a backbreaker. And Gunther applies the Boston Crab again, and we just cut abruptly to break. It's jarring when I don't get Raw rolls on. It's just like
when they're doing stuff in the ring.
Right as he applies a submission hold, we cut to break. I was like, who is making this call to go to break at this inopportune time?
I mean, this was a show where they had to back end, you know, all the commercial breaks that they missed out on in the first hour. So these matches aren't typically structured, I guess, with multiple dives to the outside and therefore maybe a commercial break in the middle of a Boston Crab.
It's like 1, 2, we'll be right back. Suicide dive is caught and Kingston gets driven back first into the apron, tries for a power bomb, but Gunther is sent into the post, and out of nowhere, Kofi hits a Trouble in Paradise. It really gets rolling here. Gunther, instead of getting pinned, rolls to the floor. So Kingston goes after him, leaps off the barricade, and gets him back in and hits a boom drop off the top for a 2 count. Huge lariat from Gunther. And then Kofi lands the SOS. Another lariat is hit in response from Gunther. Dropkick, powerbomb, and stacks him in 15 minutes and 46 seconds. Yes, we had some 2 commercials within this 15 or so minute match. But I thought that they did a very good job here. I would say probably second best match on the show.
I think once we finished the second commercial and they actually got going, I started to get into the match. The first portion was, I think, relatively cold because maybe they were anticipating and waiting for these commercials. They definitely achieved like a pretty high, quality by the end.
And then Woods checks on Kofi and they get jumped by Vinci and Kaiser, who leave them laying yet again. Jackie is with Sami Zayn and asks how he is going to put his emotions aside to take on Drew McIntyre tonight, and said it was hard to sit on the sidelines, especially when I was taken out by someone like Drew. Then I drew number 30. That too was taken away by Drew. He needs a reality check tonight. Kabuki Warriors against Natalya and Tegan Nox. So the story is that Natalya is proud that Tegan Nox eliminated her from the Royal Rumble because it shows that she is learning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. They're double teaming Nox. Did get some cheers from the crowd. And then she boots Asuka, throws Zayn out of the ring, and then gets caught in an ankle lock by Asuka. Zayn then yanks Natalya off the apron to stop the tag. So Nox escapes, finally makes the tag to Natalya, who comes in, hits a German discus lariat, and then Asuka fights off the sharpshooter. Zayn gets involved and is thrown out. And as Natalya goes to tag Tegan, Tegan is dealing with Zayn and goes to attack her, but gets knocked out on the floor. So Natalya is frustrated. They double team her and hit the Asuka holds her for the insane elbow, and Natalya eats the fall at 9:49. And they mentioned the miscommunication between Natalya and Nox.
Right. I thought it was a really cold match, and I didn't think it was very good in quality. I don't know if it's just maybe what I'm watching, but like I'm sensing a bit of like mistiming from Kyrie. Like for instance with the sharpshooter, that just seemed to go on. The sharpshooter attempt that seemed to go on forever as they're waiting for Kyrie to come in and break it. And then like there's a spot where like even Natalya trying to go for something on the outside, and maybe it's just kind of to my eye, but I've really not been that impressed with Kyrie on this run, unfortunately. And this match, I don't think did a whole lot to maybe make me optimistic that the Kabuki Warriors with the championships is going to change this division in any way. I mean, beyond that, it's the creative, and I think it's the importance of building up, real challengers through storylines, and they just haven't really done that yet.
Redmond is with Chance and Carter, and they're going to get their rematch on Raw next week through Adam Pearce. And the Kabuki Warriors are still in the ring as Samantha Irvin introduces Bayley, your Royal Rumble winner, who comes out with Dakota Kai and Io Sky, and calls this history with all these champions and the Royal Rumble winner all in the ring together. Poor Dakota Kai.
Oh, she's still injured, is she not? Like, when is she coming back? It feels like she's been injured for a year now.
It's a hell of an injury.
More than that. Yeah.
Said that Damage Control would take over and thought their idea would be a flop. Thought people have told me I wasn't as good after my injury, but I didn't listen to those opinions. I wasn't even on the poster for the Royal Rumble, but here I stand as the winner. And after the most stacked women's roster in history, I won the Rumble, and I beat Rhea Ripley's record at 63 minutes and 3 seconds. So Ripley comes out and is about to warn Bayley about choosing her for WrestleMania when she is jumped by Nia Jax, who beats the hell out of her, hits 2 leg drops in the ring, and the Annihilator, and then corners Bayley. Damage Control just skirts out of the ring, and Bayley is warned, you can pick anyone else, but Rhea is not making it to WrestleMania. So Bayley says, cool, I'm going to make my announcement on Friday on SmackDown anyway. And Io was surprised by this, that it was not just obvious that she is thinking she could pick me in all of this. So I feel this one should be drawn out a bit more than Friday for where she's going.
I think so too. Yeah. I was a bit surprised that they were like teasing that they could have Bayley just simply choose Io out of the blue, rather than maybe a bit more of a build up towards an actual turn, giving Bayley an actual reason to choose Io. We could still get that, but man, to get it within a 2-hour show, it feels like it would be a bit rushed. Like, we're still dealing with a Bayley that's very much a heel at this point, even though the crowd wants to cheer for her, but not as that, like, not a huge indication of like that sort of dissent, between her and Damage Control. Yeah, Damage Control, like they're doing things like refusing to high five her, and not telling her about their plans, but. Maybe we'll get a big turn. Maybe like they'll do an attack. I don't know. Who knows? I'm curious to see how they do it.
Drew was interviewed backstage.
And do you think Nia versus Rhea at the Chamber
Yeah, that certainly seems to be where they're going for Elimination Chamber. Yeah, I would say that
Singles match.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only match that was teased for Elimination Chamber on tonight's show. I mean, granted, you'll have probably 2 chamber matches on the show. Drew is interviewed backstage, just lays out his whole gimmick. All I do is tell the truth. And he looks up, he says, you know how many times Sami Zayn has beaten me in our singles matches? 0. And I had to look this up. Man doesn't lie.
Well, how many matches have they had?
They've had like 10 or so singles matches, and he's won every one of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Not lying.
So
Sami Zayn
he's going on cage match before these promos, I guess.
He's always fact checking. Zayn and Drew closes the show. They go through another break. Zayn hits a sunset bomb for a 2 count, and then Drew catches him with a spine buster and a sit-out power bomb. Crowd is behind Zayn. Zayn manages a superplex but can't capitalize to cover. Gets to his feet, calls for the haluva but is cut off with a clothesline. And then Drew calls for the Claymore and runs into a Blue Thunder bomb. Drew gets up and hits this huge belly to belly and hits the white noise off the turnbuckle, which was the second time we saw the same move on the show, and tells Zayn, some people are just out of your league. And this prompts Zayn to fight back. And then in the finish, as Zayn goes for the haluva kick, Drew gets his guard up and crouches down and nails him in the groin by defending himself. And Zayn is hurt by the groin shot, and Drew capitalizes with the Claymore and pins him in 12 minutes and 58 seconds. Now, if they were in a state with that subscribes to the unified rules, you could go to instant replay on a fight ending sequence and potentially get the decision overturned, but they do not subscribe to the unified rules here. So Drew McIntyre.
So you're saying under in MMA, if
there's a foul that leads to a finish, you can call for a replay on a fight ending sequence. The referee can call on a replay.
Is that the only one of the only instances where you could use instant replay? In MMA?
There's that's the main one.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe wrestling should think about that.
12:58. Drew gets the win, and then he smiles on his way to the back as Zayn sells the groin shot. I kind of like the finish. It's it's in line with this Drew character. That was I didn't. It wasn't a foul. It wasn't intentional. It's like what they've been doing with Roman for a while, with the kick out with the forearm into the groin.
Yeah, right. Although with Roman, the tease was that it is far more intentional. But it was a very interesting way to essentially kind of maintain sort of the integrity of this heel Drew McIntyre character. I mean, he continues to exist in this sort of gray area. Very much a heel, of course, but he's still somebody who I think has a nobility about him, where he doesn't cheat to win. And he will tell the truth. It's just he's a real asshole about it all, and that's why we hate him. So he did not cheat.
He's the guy that should be feuding with R-Truth.
Why?
Because that's his gimmick. He tells the truth.
Oh, yes.
It's late. It's really late. I'll just say this: for how many times we see, just blatant making the ref look dumb. I thought this was actually one where it was plausible that the referee would let this go, that it was an accidental groin shot, and in the moment you wouldn't call for the DQ. It wasn't an offensive maneuver that he did. And I thought they did semi-protect the referee here, that you could at least buy that in the heat of the moment that he let the action continue.
Yeah, totally. I like the finish. Yeah.
So that was the episode of Raw. I would say wrestling wise, the tag title match and Gunther Kofi Kingston, I enjoyed quite a bit. The big thing on the show was the Punk news. I thought Drew was excellent on this show, really strong stuff from him. And the Cody Seth, at the very least, you do have now questions about this direction for WrestleMania and where things are going to land, and questions about who will be part of the various title matches.
I found that the most interesting, throughout the show was just sort of what the domino effect of a CM Punk injury may cause to the main events of WrestleMania. What it might cause for a Cody versus Roman Reigns match. I mean, I can't believe we're even talking about it, but they're at least teasing the possibility that we might be getting Seth versus Cody instead of Roman versus Cody. So Whether or not it's just a tease or a misdirection, or if it's something they're actually planning, I at least find this story worth engaging in, and I find it pretty interesting.
One thing I skipped over during the news that I just wanted to include was Nicole and Brie Garcia, the former Bella twins, did put out a statement about the lawsuit last week, which of course one of the defendants is their stepfather, John Laurinaitis, and their statement reads, "We are shocked and disheartened with the recent allegations against members of the WWE. It has been a lot to process since we found out this past week, just as you all did. This is something we don't stand for or condone from anyone, no matter who they are. We want all women to feel safe and supported in the workplace and in their everyday lives." They're in a horrible position. That obviously they felt the need that they had to put out a statement, which is, I mean, it is something that now that we are so many days removed from it, like how many people in the industry have you seen just comment on this? Like very, very few. Like
Ronda Rousey.
Lance Evers, Ronda Rousey, the Bellas. Like it does really, the Garcias, I should say, officially. Like it does kind of tell you that there still is sort of that mentality, whatever it is. I can't speak for people, but when something like this, and there's just so few that can just come out and, be, just like put out a statement like this for instance. I'm not saying everyone has to put out a press release, but you have not seen a whole lot of comment from people in the industry.
Well, I wonder if the Garcias would have felt the pressure to do this if it wasn't involving a member of their family, their stepfather.
I bet they don't, but I'm sure they are being I can't imagine what they are being inundated with. And the fact that they have to make it very clear that they heard about that. Like, granted, of course, we have known John Laurinaitis was attached to these allegations going back to 2022, but when they are coming out there, I'm sure they're receiving tons of vitriol from people just because of the connection in the family.
Oh man, it's pretty awful, especially like when there's like so much that their children are attached to. In scenes involving John Laurinaitis, obviously from, the reality show, but also just even on their own social media, and people using these things against them. It's the fucking most low thing you could do to somebody. And let's not forget their spouses too. That I'm sure might be on the receiving end of some of that, but they needed to make a statement. I think they needed to maybe, well, at least just to kind of answer a lot of the public's sort of like curiosity. That nobody has to do anything, but I think it was a good look for them to say something and to condemn this first of all. They don't specifically mention John Laurinaitis by name. Specifically, I think they say against members of the WWE. So take that for what you will. But yeah, this did get some attention on Monday.
We'll end things off with any of your super chats, and we have a few pieces of feedback to get to.
Yeah, let's get to some of your super chats. We first of all go to Pete from Texas, who sends $5 to say, "Do you see anybody asking Ari Emanuel any tough questions, seeing that he was Vince's agent and kept him on board, knowing he had all these NDAs?"
Well, I don't know how many Ari Emanuel's like public interviews are. I won't say they're rare. I mean, he does the occasional like conference here and there. It's absolutely a fair question, especially for someone that has been very vocal regarding CAA and its attachment to Harvey Weinstein. Like that clip has circulated over the past week. I think it's only fair. I mean, it was called out at the time of that he was getting involved with a Vince McMahon when past all these NDAs, the knowledge of them had been public. There's questions for the very top of TKO. Like, you were doing your due diligence throughout this time. Like, what were you privy to? I want to know more about this independent investigation and what were the contents of it. I mean, you had the former board member Jeffrey Speed stating there was outreach to Janelle Grant and her lawyers. Well, you need to give us some more definition of what outreach consisted of, and how much of this investigation centered around the specifics of what went on versus just the monetary assignments of these NDAs. And was this just strictly about the money that we were investigating and didn't go any further? When you see like if they were just finding all of this out now, like what was the findings of this investigation that was done independently?
And how would any of us know the answers to those questions? In what sort of setting would we know? Like just another interview with Jeffrey Speed?
You may have shareholders that are going to demand answers, because if this has a detrimental effect to the company's finances, it's going to be questioned. Like, you told us that there was an independent investigation and you spent company funds, a lot of company funds, to execute this investigation. And what was found? Like, what was your fiduciary duty to us as shareholders in terms of disclosing like the contents and the findings of this? How was Vince McMahon allowed to come back onto, like, we know how Vince McMahon was allowed to come back onto this board, but it is going to demand more scrutiny about all of this now that, like, as I said in my article today, like, we have moved past where it was just these vague terms. Like, they were not nice, like, descriptions, but we went from, inappropriate relationship to hush money payments. Well, now we have the very specific allegations, and they're a lot uglier when you go deeper and have the actual allegations spelled out that that you're not sanitizing.
So we've had one TKO investors call, right?
Yes.
So far. And
the second one is in about a month.
And in terms of, I guess, line of questioning, how different were they from the WWE ones? And all I'm trying to ask is, do you think we'll get that sort of specificity when it comes to WWE spending at the next call from
I don't expect this kind of stuff to be, I mean, there may be some broad questions about it. Anything I would say extremely probing, or like, I just don't think the earnings call, like, that is not going to be the clientele that is going to be probing the company. I mean, they're going to be looking at specifics on, your short, long range plans. And Netflix. I mean, it will depend. Like, we don't know how much, like, if there is more to come, like, what kind of attention will this lawsuit get? Like, like this 3 weeks from now, like, the news cycle does move on, unfortunately, no matter how serious things are. That's just the way things are. And like, this does feel like a pretty hot button issue at the moment, but will it stay that way? And how pressing will things be? But you do have, as long as this case is ongoing, that is going to be something that is going to be, of note. And if you move, and we're talking like a discovery process, like, that could be very ugly.
Thank you very much, Pete in Texas. Also, thank you, Pete, for getting that hat, the post-wrestling hat. Yes. Some news to come on Wednesday regarding post-wrestling merchandise. So there's a bit of a teaser. Stay tuned for that. Wednesday, big announcement. Huge announcement.
Oh, man. Wai Ting has an announcement. Okay.
Matthew Yanes sends a super chat. We're not done here. We have a lot of support, John. Matthew Yanes sends $5 to say thank you for your coverage of the McMahon lawsuit. He asked, does this lawsuit affect AEW?
No, it would not.
Yeah, I think even on a business level, like, I mean, all of WWE's deals are pretty much settled, right? So it's not like they're losing maybe like competitors that AEW could come in and replace. It's, yeah, maybe there's a bigger discussion to be had about, like, I don't know, fandom and people getting turned off of WWE moving to AEW, but even that I don't really think is much we could talk about. But thank you, Matthew. Let's go up next to Nice Salmons, who sends $5. If not for McMahon, the connection between Hulk Hogan, the Church of Scientology, and the City of Clearwater ads would have been explored more. I'm not sure what that means.
I mean, it's I don't think it really would be. I mean, Hulk Hogan is, like, I think his wife is, like, attached to Scientology, and I mean,
What does that have to do with Vince?
Yeah, like I don't think people would have been probing, Hulk Hogan being used for tourism spots on the Royal Rumble to sidebar into like Scientology involvement. I mean, it's but
Okay.
maybe Nice Salmons can do an investigative deep dive into the link.
Last
right.
one here from Dave Grenier, who sends 279 just to support. Thank you very much, Dave.
Okay, let's move on to Alex, who writes, albeit under not ideal circumstances, this was the first promo from Punk's current run that actually resonated with me. I left feedback on the night of his first promo and called this the beginning of Punk's Vegas residency. I felt that he was back to have fun and make money. I can accept those simplistic motivations, considering his whirlwind of an exit from AEW, but I demand more from Punk. I demand to continue standing for things that he believes in. I want to see the same guy that advocates for reproductive rights than visiting certain U.S. states. I want to see the same guy that holds utter contempt, justifiably or otherwise, for those that he believes have wronged him. The line between Punk the performer and Punk the person did not truly exist, and that was by Phil's design. Now when I hear him say things like being in the main event of WrestleMania is his childhood dream, it comes off as, at best, decade-old aspirations and at worst, boilerplate babyface posturing. But when Punk talks about keeping his injury in perspective, talking about the real struggles of real people in his life, I light up inside. He may be in his mid-40s and in a different headspace, but I was relieved to discover that, yes, Punk still stands for something.
Interesting. I wouldn't say that like him talking about main eventing WrestleMania is boilerplate babyface posturing. I mean, it was mentioned in the Colt Cabana podcast, pretty discussed in a pretty major way.
It's absolutely the man's dream. Like that has been his definition of success or failure by his ability to achieve that on his list.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to Manny from Pacoima, who says, very strong promo from CM Punk. The older I get, the more easier it is for me to start tearing up, which is exactly what I was doing during the mention of Punk's friend. But then chill started when the blue-collar man, Phil Brooks, started speaking passionately. The tag title match was also very good. I bid on every near fall in that match. Triple A announced the new Taurus will debut on February 18th, and a new generation begins as Blue Demon 3 makes their debut in next March. A big shout out to every post member who spoke about the recent lawsuit and everyone on the site who covered it. I hope you all took the time to take a bit of a breather and take care of your mental health while working hard during this crazy week. Thank you.
We always appreciate Manny from Pacoima. All right. And from Annie here, the best TV show of the year. The middling first promo aside, Punk has hit it out of the park on every occasion. The fact that he's the epicenter of the most compelling content whenever he goes makes him the best wrestler of his generation. If you value emotional stakes and drama over feats of athleticism. I had a massive gripe with the Seth Cody promo, which was intelligence insulting filler at best, or character destroying if Cody picks Seth. This disparity between Reigns cheating, people like Seth calling him out, and the commentators pretending he's 98 Goldberg is also jarring. Am I just supposed to take Cole at face value in this tell, don't show method of telling stories? So I guess his argument here is that they are that this is doing too much to devalue Roman Reigns.
What do you mean? What's devaluing him?
The promo with Seth.
Okay. I don't think so, because I think there's a very real world credibility to Roman Reigns' championship run. I mean, the fact that no matter what the activity level is, the fact that like he's still held onto the championship and is seen at least symbolically as the head of this company for 3 years, it is completely unprecedented. And I don't think like no matter what a rival champion would say will change that. But you expect a rival champion to talk down on the other championship and talk his championship up. I just kind of saw it as competitive trash talk and not necessarily something that, in my opinion, devalued.
Yeah, I think your mileage will vary, but I think they almost now it is like here is the ruling tyrant that is like untouchable, that he has been in this position for so long that it has just become like who can knock this guy off, that he is like this overlord in WWE that nobody can unseat this power from.
Did people talk this way about Bruno back in the day? I wonder.
We don't
this
talk
tyrant.
About
what?
Nothing. Some might have got it. I don't know. All right. Last one is Muggin here.
All right, Muggin says, for somebody who famously said that luck is for losers, Punk sure has had the worst luck staying healthy. That notwithstanding, the promo was strong and it gave Drew the heel he needed, and Punk has a built-in program for when he's healthy. It looked like a surefire bet that Cody was going to pick Roman, but Seth made a compelling case for why he should pick him instead. Bayley was going to make her choice, but Nia Jax happened. Friday better have an answer. Kofi, Gunther, and DIY Judgment Day had the goods. WWE is in buying time mode with Punk's injury, 86ing what could have been a killer main event for night one and reeling from a turbulent weekend. Side note, I like how the GMs are acquiring talent. The Braun name drop means that Vengeance Day will be his swan song.
Okay. There is one more here from Dave, so let's do this last one. Do you think the timing of the Netflix deal announcement occurred because TKO knew that the Vince lawsuit was coming imminently? It feels too coincidental that everything happened just days apart and feels like PR spin 101 to flood the zone with other major news to confuse the average media consumer and give the likes of Triple H something amazing to talk about instead of the damaging Vince news. Your thoughts on this? No, I do not. I think that it's a conspiracy that you can dive into, but no, I don't think they had any idea the Vince lawsuit was dropping 2 days later. And I think that it is, I mean, as
wouldn't it have made more sense to break the news after this lawsuit dropped?
It would be, the case? It would maybe be the better play if you were lining up all this to take people's attention off of it.
I guess so. I guess that would make Netflix look even worse. And I mean, I just like somebody brought up a great point about how I don't think you would have had Dwayne Johnson or Nick Khan publicly talking up Vince McMahon in the media days before this dropping if they knew that this was going to be dropping.
No, I legitimately don't. When Paul Levesque and Cody Rhodes state that like this was dropping in real time for them, I don't doubt that. Now Paul Levesque was a board member. It's like I'm sure had but what he was privy to, we don't know, but the actual lawsuit dropping, and I'm sure the contents of it was fresh to many people that even if they were aware of the allegations, would have not known all those specifics that were listed in there. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't think. And it's like you had Nick Khan literally on Pat McAfee and they're waxing poetic about Vince McMahon days before this. So, I mean, quite frankly, I don't think they would have had Vince McMahon front and center there at the New York Stock Exchange on top of it last Tuesday. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that was the case, Dave, but thank you anyway. Okay. We are all caught up to date now on all the news, all the happenings at Raw. We are back later on this week. So the MMA prediction show dropping on Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got Pollock and Thurston as well as Rewinded Dynamite. And then Thursday, postwrestlingcafe.com. It is Rewind Away, number 149. We're going to Raw at the Air Canada Center, September of 2001. Tune in, find out what was going on that week in history, and then a show review from myself and Mr. Wai Ting.
Was the what chant a thing back then?
Yes, It was just kicking off at this time. This was the birth of the what chant was this period. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Monumental.
This is when it was fresh. Yeah. Can you believe we're almost going to be at we're almost at 20
years of what chants?
20 plus years at this point. We're at oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's still staying strong.
I think it'll outlive all of us.
I think it will 100%. You know what? Maybe it'll get to a point one day where it's like kids who grew up in this era to become wrestlers. Like that's going to be like this honorary thing. You get the what chant, and it's going to be treated as like this sign of respect.
My first what chant.
Yeah,
that's going to be the chant. Yeah,
that'll be the new WrestleMania moment. My first what moment.
Yes,
with the universe. Okay, that's it for us. We're checking out. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll speak with you later this week.